Having spoken about stakeholder advocates, let's now discuss how libraries serve as advocates for themselves and therefore for their users. Libraries often use outreach and marketing as a means to raise awareness and advocacy for library issues and to ensure that the library remains well funded. This is especially true in the case of public libraries that are indirectly funded by taxpayers. During an election season, when a referendum is on the ballot to raise taxes for library funding, libraries and their stakeholder advocates will often write letters to the editor or guest editorials in their local newspapers, and they do this as a means of educating their fellow community members about the importance of supporting the library. During this time period, the local library may also share information with users on the cost of running the library, upcoming referendums, and its potential effect on library finances. Encourage stakeholders to contact their local officials to voice support for the library. The library should make available the names and contact information for these officials, along with talking points or possible sample language that users can borrow when contacting their officials. Related to this, libraries frequently take part in annual advocacy days to lobby state legislators and again, raise awareness on financial issues that may pose a threat to libraries. These activities are usually coordinated events that also include the use of stakeholder advocates. Now, one absolutely brilliant campaign related to voting on a library budget was undertaken by the Troy Public Library in Troy, Michigan. In this case, the library very ingeniously used reverse psychology to appeal to voters and to achieve a successful outcome. In short, the library was facing a huge budget shortfall, and there was strong political resistance to even minimally raising taxes to support the library. So, the library undertook an anonymous campaign whereby it urged people to not only vote to close the library, but to also attend a book burning party. Lawn signs were erected, and a Facebook page was created. Now I'm going to leave it at that as I'm providing you with a YouTube video to learn more about this campaign. And I want to note right up front that there's a mention of a particular political party in the beginning of this video. My sharing this video is completely nonpartisan. It's apolitical, and it's definitely not offered as a criticism to any political party. So I just want to get that out there right now. This is just an example of what I consider to be a very innovative and daring campaign, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. All right. Related to using marketing as an advocacy tool, there are other ways that marketing can also be employed to raise awareness and educate users about budget issues facing libraries. One such example is a campaign that was undertaken by a staff member from the engineering library at Cornell University a few years ago. The purpose of this campaign was to raise awareness as to the exorbitant cost to libraries of electronic journal subscriptions. Library Journal publishes a yearly pricing survey on the cost of electronic journals, and the information is broken up by discipline, with scientific disciplines, not surprisingly, having the most expensive publications. They're really expensive. In this case, the staff member in question took Library Journal's list and compared the cost of electronic journals in the sciences to the cost of luxury items such as jewelry, international travel, and other commodities. He then created a poster that was displayed in the library and on the library website. And this information is also linked to some Cornell Library subject guides. And I'm sharing a section of that poster here with you now, so you can see what it looks like. A link to the full poster is available in your supplemental reading list. And since this poster was created a few years ago, some of these prices are now out of date, but the fundamental message is still valid. So what did the staff member hope to achieve by creating this campaign? Obviously, he didn't expect students or faculty to suddenly reach into their pockets and donate money to pay for these journals, but he did want these users to realize just how expensive these journals were, and therefore what an added value the library was providing users by subscribing to these journals. This price comparison also served as a very strong message to the provost as to why library funding is important. In part, it was also a plea for faculty to consider alternatives to traditional publishing, such as open access journals, and also the greater use of institutional repositories. Now, related to this campaign, the Martin P. Catherwood Library at Cornell School of Industrial and Labor Relations used a similar tactic to educate and entice two other stakeholder groups, in this case corporate donors and alumni, to endow expensive electronic subscriptions, so much in the same way that buildings or professorial chairs on campus are endowed. Donor recognition was added to the library's public online catalog record, and the last I heard, Catherwood Library was negotiating with certain vendors to have donor names listed on the electronic copy of the journal as well. When you're using creative tactics to raise awareness of library budget issues, you do need to proceed with caution. Many years ago, the director of a county public library that was facing a possible reduction in its budget, she tried a shock tactic that basically backfired. And in this case, the director decided to remove all of the new books from the very popular and heavily browsed new book section of the library. Empty shelves were replaced with signs that read, "Wonder where all the books went? The county is threatening to cut our budget. Without funding, this is what the library will become." Now, part of me wanted to applaud this rather gutsy move on the part of the library director. However, it was an extreme step. It was very overtly aimed at the county government that was the library director's employer in this case, and it did ultimately backfire on her. Now, though the campaign no doubt raised public awareness as to the state of the library budget, it nonetheless angered tax-paying users who didn't appreciate the lack of access to materials that they knew were actually available, but that were just taken out of circulation for the duration of the publicity campaign. So by all means, raise awareness, but do so with care. All right, I want to now go back to our marketing plan and its campaigns. In the last few weeks, we've looked at several ideas for developing the marketing plan. We talked about the use of needs assessments and environmental scans to begin the planning process. We also looked at positioning statements and techniques for delivering the marketing message by the means of several promotional methods and vehicles. This week, we're going to finish our lecture by focusing on 3 more items that are crucially important to the library's marketing plan and its campaigns: the frequency with which you deliver your message, a cost analysis of the plan, and how to measure the success of your marketing efforts. For this section, we return to ACRL's Strategic Marketing for Academic and Research Libraries. In marketing, it is common for messages to be shared frequently and through various vehicles. Based on the work of ACRL and Shui and Hyam, who we referenced last week, we're going to look at 4 broad sequencing strategies for sharing marketing messages: the continuity strategy, the flighting strategy, the concentrated or mass strategy, and the pulsing or combining strategy. So the continuity strategy. In this strategy, messages within selected vehicles are spread out over the entire strategic planning period, the marketing period, and they're designed actually to promote a continuous awareness of the library and its ongoing services. An example of a continuity strategy for the library could be a monthly library email newsletter that is sent to library users. So it's ongoing. The flighting strategy is best used when demand for services or products has a marked ebb and flow. Therefore, messaging takes a stop-and-go approach. In libraries, predictable times when services or activities ebb and flow include things like library-related orientation activities, for academic libraries, or summer reading programs for public libraries. In these cases, the library only sends out messages at certain times of the year. And then there's the concentrated or massed strategy. This is somewhat related to the flighting strategy. In this case, messages are bundled and transmitted during specific time periods with no other communication occurring in between these time periods. And ACRL differentiates flighting from concentrated strategies by the following examples. The flighting strategy might be used to market a technology training program. And in this case, messages may go out 3 to 4 times a year, and they'll be scheduled around academic quarters or semesters. The concentrated strategy, on the other hand, may be used to market a new interface for an existing database. In this case, the messages are conveyed only during the month that the new interface is about to be unveiled. And then there's the pulsing or combining strategy. And this basically combines all 3 strategies to allow for a thorough, continuous, and focused strategy. And the example used by ACRL is that of a florist, right? So these merchants will advertise year-round, but they also place a special emphasis on marketing around holidays such as Valentine's Day. All right, let's move on to talk about cost analysis. Now, we've been talking in the last few weeks about all the various ways that we can market the library, including various vehicles for delivering messages. While many of these can be achieved at a low cost, things like social media, email campaigns, that kind of thing, others, such as paid advertising, flyers, bookmarks, co-sponsored programming, and marketing-related activities, such as a needs assessment survey, these can all be expensive. When creating your marketing plan, it is therefore important to consider both the human resources and the material resources that you're going to need. So the human resources. So what are you going to need in terms of staffing your marketing plan or specific campaign? Now this is going to largely depend on the campaign itself. So roles could include, but obviously they're not limited to, a marketing lead. So who's going to take the lead on this particular campaign? Who will oversee the communications and the timeline? Writers. Who will draft the written materials if you have any? Often it helps to have someone with excellent writing skills for this particular task. Graphic designers, or a designer. So when some libraries outsource graphic design, others have talented in-house staff. So who's going to do that? And though we may initially think of staffing the plan as being a free resource, in the sense that it's not an extra outlay of expenditures, in reality, it is, of course, expensive. How much time will each staff member devote to the marketing campaign? How much is this staff member paid per hour, and how many hours of his or her time is being used for the marketing campaign? Unless you have someone already on staff whose main job responsibility is marketing, the staff member or members working on the plan will undoubtedly also have numerous other job responsibilities. Is marketing a formal part of the staff member's job description, or is this responsibility an add-on? If the latter, will the staff member be expected to add this work on top of existing work, or will his or her workload be lightened? So, all of these issues need to be considered when you're doing a cost analysis of your proposed marketing plan. And then there's your material resources. Allocating material resources will really largely depend on the vehicles that you use for your campaign, right? So you need to determine the cost of creating and printing flyers, posters, brochures, that kind of thing. If you're holding focus groups or one-on-one interviews, how many participants do you want to interview? What type of compensation, like money, gift cards, etc.? What kind of compensation are you going to provide to the participants? How much will you budget to spend on refreshments? Will you need to purchase additional equipment, such as digital recorders? These and any number of additional factors must be considered when you're undertaking your cost analysis. Okay, so some cost analysis steps. In addition to factoring the human and material resources needed to implement your marketing plan, you should also identify current funding availability. So, does the library have an existing budget line for marketing, or will funds need to be drawn from other budget lines? Stakeholders who may help with the implementation of your marketing plan. And these could include other departments or agencies who share in the cost of the campaign. Grant funded opportunities. And there are numerous grants available to libraries for outreach and marketing, and these really should be explored if it appears that the library's existing budget cannot support the proposed marketing plan. That's very important. And then the costs of various vehicle options. Now, we've already talked about material costs. The library should also investigate the costs associated with delivery vehicles, such as paid advertising on television, radio, in newspapers, and in other print media. Now, one last word on budgeting your marketing plan. Look for discounts or donations. Go back to those community stakeholder advocates with whom you've established relationships, or build new relationships. Local businesses such as coffee shops, pizzerias, and grocery stores will often discount or donate goods for nonprofit events. Ask if they'll do the same for your marketing efforts. The local printing company may be willing to discount the cost of preparing and printing your brochures. The local coffee company or grocery store may be willing to donate refreshments for your focus groups. And this is also good publicity for those businesses to work with the library, particularly if the library publicly thanks these businesses for their support.